So, talk to you today about is water. Water, the scariest issue I could think of that you just keep wanting to put out of your mind. You don't think about it. So could we spend a few minutes talking about the issue? Just a general, what's going on? Why is it a crisis? It is.
Well, first of all, we shouldn't put water out of our mind. In fact, what do the statistics say? You can last, what, 3 weeks without food, then maybe 3 days perhaps without water. And without air, I think you last maybe 3 minutes at the most. Air and water are very important, but certainly water is super important. And
Live without music.
I've got music on in the background right now. Yeah. Constant. So anyway, so water, as far as for granted, still is being taken for granted, is still not getting enough funding, whether it's private or public, to make sure our infrastructure is capable of working, of transporting water and wastewater without crumbling and deteriorating to disrepair and the
US itself, in the US.
There's probably $500 billion worth of needs just for domestic, water, not even counting wastewater resources. So it's a major consideration right now. So we're seeing more and more public-private financing coming through P3s, starting to come about for larger, both commercial and municipal.
I was researching before our call. Water only became part of our mindset in the 1700s when England was becoming industrialized and everyone was moving into the same area, and all of a sudden it had to be figured out. And it's only been since the 1900s that we've had these drinking water considerations and all the water facilities.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the 1700s. Here in the United States, in was it 1783, George Washington came up to this part of the world that I'm talking to you from today, Saratoga County, New York, and actually went to High Rock Spring with Governor then Clinton of New York and Alexander Hamilton, and they enjoyed the spring water there quite a bit. George Washington made a bid to buy Saratoga Springs back then. However, he was blocked. People still come to this area these days for commercial purposes because of the abundant waters up here. So you'll see enterprises like Global Foundries, the massive chip fabs they're building in Saratoga County now as a result of having an abundance of water in upstate New York. However, that's not the case in other parts of the country and certainly the world.
It's drinkable water. That's the key.
Drinkable water, and of course the for commercial, for the fabs, that's used for process, for the chip fabrication. And you used to see these types of fabs a lot in the Southwest, in Arizona and Texas, but we're seeing a migration now, and they're not coming here for the weather. They're coming here for the water. It's like Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca, was it Louis asked him, Rick the bartender, why did you come here? And I came here for my health. I came here for the water. Louis says, it's a desert. Rick says, I was misinformed. Classic line. But it makes you think about water and why people do migrate to certain places, and whether it's an oasis in the desert or whether it's the seashore for recreation, water is a major attractor in this world.
But because of limited drinking water, a limited amount, as a result, over the next few years, territory lines for nations could change. Wars could break out.
Yeah, we've heard many times the next great war will be fought over water. And that's been a theme for many years now, whether it was the ultra violence in Jack Nicholson's film Chinatown. That was all about the water in Los Angeles and who controlled the water in this developing metropolis. There's a James Bond movie about water rights in South America, basically. This is a global, certainly a global issue, and it's not just drinking. Drinking water is key, and the fact is, a good percentage of the world's population does not have clean drinking water.
I think it's close to 1 billion people do not have access.
I think.
Something. Yeah. So you're going to all these international conferences regarding water. You're covering it. You're writing about it. So if we were to say there are 2 or 3 things that architects and owners and developers are most fascinated by, really focused on for the topic, what are they?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It was interesting that this is not just a big city issue. This is a small town issue also. So if you're a commercial developer, say in Arkansas, and I'm thinking of a community called Southside right now, and they were dealing with failing septic tanks for many years that really contracted possibility of commercial development going on. When they converted from septic to sewer, that enabled economic growth for this town of Southside. And we're seeing that replicated around the world. So that's a major concern. Having the wastewater infrastructure will enable a commercial enterprise to operate efficaciously, definitely.
Yeah, wastewater is the key. A lot of people aren't talking about it, but can you go deeper on wastewater, how it's handled, why it's so significant?
Like I mentioned, Dean, in the last comment, Southside Arkansas is a small town, and it was fairly sparse at one time and not so dense. So when they built out, they just put in septic tanks or on pools building, and eventually these cesspools, the septic tanks fail, and it pollutes the groundwater. It creates a health hazard. It does not enable further development. That's a crucial aspect that's repeated around the country, and in residential as well as commercial. But we're seeing commercial right now, if you're talking about development, and anywhere west of the Mississippi, water or lack thereof, and then clean water. Even I was out in New Mexico a week ago, outside in Albuquerque, and just outside of Albuquerque, there's a community called Bosque Farms, and the community of Peralta. And you think of New Mexico as arid desert, but they've got a water table there that's just 4 feet down, and that area is governed not only by tribal rules for water, but rules that were set down during the Spanish possession of the territory, as well as state and federal rules. So to figure all of these rules out and then provide the water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure that's needed to preserve the water resources is a major issue. And you're going to find that more and more as you get certainly into larger cities, if you want to do a commercial development. I think LA County is one of the toughest. It's renowned as being one of the toughest in the country. And the last large project there had to go through like 221 environmental before they could finish entitlement.
So we're talking a lot about local and the impact. So I'm an architect. I'm designing a major office building in a second, third tier city. What are considerations regarding water that I have to have now that I wouldn't have thought about even 10 years ago?
Well, Dean, I like to say some of my best friends are architects, but the fact is a lot of architects you talk to, even my best friends, will say, hey, talk to our engineer about this. They want to keep their hands clean, especially as far as wastewater is concerned. And I understand that, but we're seeing more and more architects now, whether they're landscape architects or commercial architects, that have to figure out how to put a building in, how to work with the density that's provided by the developer, so that the developer maximum density out of this parcel. And if you don't have the correct water infrastructure to serve that density, then you're going to be wasting lots. You're going to be wasting space, whether it's commercial, multifamily, residential, and particularly in some parts of the world, real estate is at quite a premium right now. So we're seeing projects where if they the right water infrastructure, they can include 3 or 4 more lots or parcels that would not have been able to be otherwise because they couldn't be sewered, for instance. So that becomes a massive economic driver for decision making.
This week I was involved in a conversation, and it was the owner and also the architect, and we're talking about capturing rainwater and that they're redoing their building, capture it. What really is the benefit of that?
Well, it's certainly depending on the part of the world you're in. If you're in an arid area, everybody's got cisterns. Go to Bermuda, for instance. Everybody collects. Every house, every building, the rooftop is a water collector for when it does rain, and they fill up those cisterns. That's just a way of life, and it has been for many, many years. If you go to the Green Build Conference, you'll see some pretty interesting, rain collection systems there, and that's coming up, I guess, in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Of the month here of November.
yeah.
So you'll see a certain number of companies addressing that now. It's tough. It's a tough industry. It's very fragmented because these large cisterns, are usually locally sourced because it's just too expensive to ship air, so to speak, or these giant tanks around the country. So you don't see large manufacturers talking about it, but it is a local issue, and there are local providers.
Good. This is just an overview about what you're going to be hitting on in the future and all different content communities. And
Yeah.
let's to wrap this up, what are some of the things that the audience would be really curious about that you're going to hit on later?
One concern is certainly the rules I was talking about before. What are the requirements for appropriate infrastructure in a new commercial environment? What are the main drivers or decisions that have to be studied before they go into an area? Say there's a beautiful piece of land and perfect for, say, a shopping environment. Mixed use with residential also. However, there's no way to sewer it. Does that land go wasted? Does that looked over? And I think I can provide a lot of information about how to meet challenging land, meet challenging and meet the challenges of financing these projects also. So it's about putting people, ideas, and money together in a very collaborative sense. And we're seeing, as far as project delivery, that's evolving also. And we're seeing more and more projects delivered, not just design build, but more construction manager at risk CMARP type projects, as well as these P3s. So hopefully I can provide some more insight into that changing landscape, because that can be a little bit confusing, if not mysterious, to somebody just getting into that market.
Great. Thanks for doing this for Commark.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited about this mission that you're on, and you've assembled such a great team, and glad to be a part of it.